Welcome to section 4.2.4 today, and this section has us comparing and using multiple representations, and the real big idea that I get out of this unit is they're going to give you information in all sorts of representations and see if you can find what's common about them, what's the same about them, so you can compare them. Okay, information comes at us in the real world, so how do I use and compare things given to me using different representations? In the real world, it would be like saying, how do I compare things that are given to me in different ways? Of course, the big ways here is tables, stories, rules and equations, and graphs and patterns are some of the ways that we have been given those. Our first question, actually the first part of the first question, because all we're going to do today in part 1 and part 2 is talk about question 95, gives us a chart like this and tells us the story about Julia, who started with $325 in her savings account, and she gets a new job and is going to try to save money each month. Tells us that she's going to deposit the same amount and each month, and how much money will be in her account after she's been saving for a year. So in other words, if this is the chart that goes with it, the question is not at 10 months or 11 months or 12, not at 10 or 11 months, but how much she will have at 1 year or 12 months. Now they gave us a little bit of a hint that I want to go back to. They told us she started with $325, so we know at month 0 she has $325. Let's look and see what the growth rate is on these. For each year, or not each year, each month we go up, we notice that it went from 845, from 780 to 845. Well, I'm going to find the difference to see how much it went up. It went up by 65. Let's see if that is true again. Let's see if it went up here by 65. 845 plus 65 is 910. So I can continue this pattern just up to a year. Plus 65, so at this month 975, plus 65 again, 1040, plus 65 again, and I get 1105. Okay? I want to show you here another piece of this idea. We haven't done much with it, but you should know how to do this. In this first one, if I look, I'm not going up by 1 year, I'm going up by 7. And so I'm going to see how much it goes up in 7 years. In 7 years, 780 minus 325, it went up 455. The way that I can find a year rate, because that's really what I need when I'm writing my rule, is I need to know how much it's going up in 1 year, or whatever 1x is, whether that's a week or a month or a day. Here it happens to be months, so I need to go know what 1 month going up will be. We found it here as 65. Let's see if it shows us the same thing if I divide this into equal pieces. If I take 455 and divide it into 7 equal pieces, I also get 65. So this is another way to get your amount it's going up per each x if the numbers don't go up by 1. Let's go ahead and write our rule. Okay, in our rule, right here we're going to put the growth, so we know it's going up by $65 a year. No, not a year. I keep saying that. This is a month. And the starting point was important because it started at 325. And so that was just a quick review of how we find that information. How we find out how much it's growing, how much we find that. Growth in the table, how we find it. growth in the rule, where that is at. Now my scanner busted, is broken, and so I don't have the pages, so I'm going to have to put this handwritten copy up. But on the next problem, part of the problem, part B, they give us these 4 towns, and they want us to tell which one is growing the fastest. And so notice that they gave us a table, they gave us a graph, they gave us a rule, and they gave us a story. 4 different ways of looking at the information. Question is, can we find the growth in a table? Can we find the growth in a graph? Can we find the growth in the story? And can we find the growth in the rule? Some of those are going to be easier than others. I'm going to look at this table first. And population of town A. Well, I noticed that town A went up by 4 there. And here it went up by, I believe, 18,000. So the way I told you in the last question is just basically take the 18,000, break it up into 4 groups, and I get that that's a growth of 4,500 people per year. Let's see if that happens the same here. Here it's just going up by 1, and I see once again that, yeah, that is going up by 4,500 in 1 year. So this town's growth rate is going up by 4,500. In the next one, we're going to need to look at the graph, and we're going to have to find the growth rate. We find the growth rate by doing a growth triangle, and we have to look at the scale. If I go from here to here, I've gone over 1, and I've gone here from the number 2 to the number 8. Well, the number 2 to the number 8 is a change of 6. Write it as a fraction with that on top, that on the bottom, and I get that this has a growth rate of 6. Read careful. That doesn't look like growing very much, but it tells us on the graph in your book that these are in thousands. So that actually means that this one is growing by 6,000 people per year. Okay, the rule is really easy to find the growth rate in. The growth rate in the rule is on the x. It's negative 150. Don't really have to do anything else, just have to know that this is negative, so it's shrinking by 150 people per year. Okay, let's look over here, and this was one of the tricky ones. Population of town D. I didn't put the whole story here, but I put the last few lines. 2 years ago, the town had 9,100 people. Now the town has 15,500. So we're going to find the difference. Nine from 15 is 6. So that's 6,400. But that's not 1 year, that's 2 years. And so I need to take the 6,400 and divide it by 2, and I get 3,200 people per year. Well, here are my 4 numbers. I have town A at 4,500. I have town B at 6,000. I have town C shrinking by 150 people per year. And I have town D growing by 3,200. Now that I've kind of shown that I can find the growth in all of these, it makes it easy to notice that this one, town B, is the one that's growing the most. Okay? Watch part 2 for some information on the other parts of this lesson.